Hello, hello. Welcome to the place for offbeat health professionals who have bravely swapped their healthcare hats for non-clinical creative caps. I'm Caitlin, a psychologist turned copywriter, and this is Healers with Hustles. Hey, healers. So today I'm, as always, super excited to be sharing another episode, but today I'm talking about brand voice, which is one of my favorite things in copywriting. I thought I'd start off by giving a few examples of brand voice because examples are always one of the best things to understand something, right? So I rewrote that welcoming sentence in 3 different brand voices. So the first one is, what up, healers? Buckle up because today I'm dishing the dirt on brand voice and challenging a few myths along the way. I'll be tearing down the old rules. Are you with me? The second one, namaste, healers. Today I'm profoundly excited to share an episode on the true essence of brand voice. Let us bear witness to this enlightening exploration, as always, with joy and light. And the third one, hello healers. Today we're covering brand voice. I'll break it down and make it easier to understand. Let's get started. All right, so totally different voices, but what is brand voice? Brand voice is made up of 3 things. The words we use, or as I say, phraseology. So do we use complex words, we use simple words, we use made up words. And the second one is tone or attitude, as I call it. So that's the emotion that's in the voice. What does the writing make people feel? And what emotion is the writer or the brand trying to evoke? And if there's cadence, or as I call it, beat, so the rhythm of the writing. Does the brand use very short, sharp sentences, or are they long, flowy sentences that lull the reader into a bit of a trance and has a really soothing feel? And so altogether, I call that FAB, and that's my brand voice framework, and that's where I get my tagline from. So content as fab as you are. So we've identified what a brand voice is, but what isn't it? So brand voice is sometimes confused with brand personality, and they're 2 different things, because brand personality is the characteristics of traits of a brand, and brand voice is how that brand expresses the personality in words. So someone, or a personal brand or a company, 2 companies could have the same personality. So for instance, a lot of branding uses the Jungian archetypes. So a brand could have the same personality or archetype, but express that in totally different ways. So for example, the example I always use is Yoda and the Cheshire Cat is both a sage personality archetype, but how they express that personality is wildly different, right? And next, why is brand voice important? Well, apart from the usual brand voice, it's one of the easiest ways to stand out in an industry is by sounding completely different or being recognized just through your content. So for example, an exercise I like to show people about the importance of brand voice is covering up all the visual elements on a website and reading your content. Does it sound like anyone else's, or does it sound like you? Could you easily put any of your competitors' logos up and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference? Or is how you write your content, people will go, oh my gosh, yeah, that's Caitlin, that's for sure, that's her content. But another important reason why brand voice really ought to be documented for brands, or particularly brands who have other writers writing for them. So it's one thing for the founder to be writing at the start, and yeah, sure, they'll write how they talk, and so it's a bit easier for them to know because it might be exactly how they speak. That's not to say that fully documenting the voice isn't helpful, but documenting the voice is particularly helpful when brands employ other writers to write for them, because it takes a lot of time and money to train people. And so documenting the voice helps the onboarding process, so saving oodles of time. And it also helps teams when they onboard new writers to be fully productive from the get-go, rather than maybe taking heaps of time to having to go back to the editor and then the editor making changes, or telling them that they need to make changes. It really speeds the process up. And then of course it helps with productivity and consistency and makes hiring, say, freelancers or contractors super easy. But moving on to the exciting stuff. So what are the voices? So how I was trained in brand voice was through Brand Voice Academy, and we have the amazing Jill Hill coming on in a few episodes' time. And I'm also lined up Justin Blackman to have a bit of a chat with us as well, which I can't wait. There are 9 brand voices, and people can be a combination of the voices, but really the 9 voices that fall under in 3 categories. So there's the voices of authority who lead with their expertise, the voices of accessibility, which really get down on their readers or their audience's level. And then we've got the voices of outlook, which lead with their outlook and how they view the world. And so one of the services that I offer, probably one of my favorite services because it's as close as therapy as possible in the marketing world, is where we sort out different tones. So it's really focusing on the tone of voice, going through different tones and working out how the brand wants to sound, how they don't want to sound. And then I do a little bit of what I call voice math and work out what their primary brand voices are. And often it's an incredible workshop because brands feel fully seen, and they also have a lot of direction or clarity in what type of content to make or what type of their content their audience needs to hear from them. I thought I'd give you something to think about because I found this quite helpful, and this comes from Justin Blackman. When you're thinking about what type of voice my brand should have, think of your audience, but then think of the brand voice being a mirror to your audience. And of course, mirrors, it's a reflection, right? So it should be the opposite of how your audience is feeling. For instance, if your audience is feeling really overwhelmed and doesn't know what they're doing, or just totally new to an area, having a voice that is very sure and authoritative, and this is the exact steps you need to take to get to this result, will be very helpful. Or maybe your audience is really feeling disillusioned and they're like, I can't stand what's happening in the industry. They're really down and out and they feel quite hopeless. Having a voice that maybe is the opposite of that, so something that's quite positive, or potentially your audience might be feeling a little bit bored or want something totally different, or they really want someone that gets them. So maybe a voice that is all about that. It's about making content relatable and funny and a bit silly might be the way to go. So first think about what your audience is experiencing and seeing if you can mirror that or opposite that in terms of beautiful. So today, I hope that made you a little bit curious and excited about brand voice, because I'll be talking quite a bit about brand voice on this podcast, but that's a little bit of a taster. But I have another part 2 of this where I'll run through all the 9 voice types in a little bit more detail and give some examples just so you know what the heck I'm talking about. But thank you so much. Until next time. All right. That's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Healers with Hustles. If you've enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a tiny favor and subscribe to the show? Just tap the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform and you'll be the first to know as soon as a new episode drops. Thanks so much for listening. Okay, ta-ta for now.